And I'm Lenny Kluge.
We're two immigrants living in Chile, bringing you information on news, cultural topics, travel, business, and more.
The Chile Today podcast is the first ever bi-weekly English news podcast.
For more information about the news topics you will hear today, check out our news affiliate, chiletoday.cl.
If you have any questions, stories to share, or just want to say hi, message us on Instagram at Chile Today Podcast or email us at chiletodaypodcast@gmail.com.
If you're feeling generous, rate and review us so that more people can find our podcast. Okay. So if you want to know what's behind the scenes, what we talk about, apparently Pinguino just told us that in one of the first reiterations of Spider-Man, his powers were a metaphor for puberty, and so he got the idea for his web slingers when he woke up with his sheets stuck to him.
Or come talk to us and grab a
Come
beer
talk to us.
at one of our events. Now that's a smooth segue, but you totally misinterpreted that, I guess, on purpose. Great.
Yeah, so we're real fun people, and we wanted to, I guess, before we even talk to each other, because Lenny doesn't like me anymore, I guess, we're going to talk about the events we have coming up in Santiago. So what's the first one, Lenny?
The first one is the horrible movie night.
Yes, and we are watching, it's called Swiss Army Man. And yes, everybody's shouting at the podcast. It's not a horrible movie. No, it's just bizarre. It's a bizarre movie night more than anything.
Bizarre movie.
It's a movie where Daniel Radcliffe plays a dead corpse that washes up on a deserted island, and his dead corpse can be used for anything, like as a flamethrower. Apparently,
Daniel Radcliffe?
Yeah, apparently
How have I not heard about this before?
his male genitalia is a compass. It sounds.
Well, which one isn't? This is how it works. You didn't know that?
I did not.
Yeah.
I did not. It always points north.
Yeah, it usually depends on the situation. That's why it's a compass.
Always points north. Okay. That's when people's compasses get broke. That's what the pills are for. So anyway, this is what this movie's about. It sounds amazing. I've never seen it. Pinguino has and says it's horribly great. So that's actually on the 17th of February. So that's coming right up. It's a free event. So come out, hang out. It's gonna be at a bar called the Black Rock Pub near Metro Tobalaba. It starts at, I believe, 8. We're going to have all this information up on our Instagram, and just come out, hang out. I'm going to be there. I think Pinguino's going to be there. Lynn, are you going to be there?
I might not. I'm going to leave this up to suspense here.
Oh, okay, great. But I'm going to be there. So if you want to meet us in person, that's that. And then what's our next event?
And then the next event should be the Chistolas comedy show.
Yeah, there's a bilingual comedy show that's going to take place at Fiddler's Irish Pub, which is right next to Metro Monmont. It starts at 8. There are 4 great comedians, including Pinguino. He's going to be comedying it up.
It's going to be like quack, quack, quack.
Do penguins quack? I thought they chirp.
They honk. It was like this video about Magellan penguins. I don't know. Did you see that? It was like this video about Magellan penguins. And this thing just...
Magellan
penguins.
Magellan.
Yeah, and these little critters just honk, honk. It was kind of funny.
Aww. Maybe we should poke Pinguino, see what noises he makes. Idea. Poke Pinguino, see what noises he makes. He's shaking his head.
Gonna be like, ah!
Hell fucking no. Don't you touch me.
Get your hands off me.
Grumpy penguin man. Okay, so that one starts at 8, and that is 3,000 pesos to get in the door, and that's so that we can pay our comedians. These are all people who are really, really passionate about their art, and they're really good. Pinguino's been doing comedy for a long time, and a lot of the people there are professionally trained. So come out, see, laugh. You'll have comedians in English and other comedians in Spanish, and some that do both. So it's going to be a real good time. And then what's the last event that we have already?
That should be the pub quiz for this month.
Yeah, we have a bilingual trivia night. That's on the 26th of this month. And that one starts at 8, and it is 6,000 pesos to enter per team. Teams of up to 3. These have rounds in English and Spanish. So round 1 will be in Spanish, round 2 in English. But it's accessible to all language levels. It's super easy. If you have questions about words, everything, it's super fun, a great way to practice, and a great way to meet new people. It's my favorite event of the month. I'm going to be hosting as well as Pinguino. It's going to be really fun. I don't think Lenny's going to be there, but it's going to be a fun time. If you're interested in any of these events, you can go to our Instagram at Chile Today Podcast, or you can email us if you have questions, chiletodaypodcast@gmail.com.
All right.
Word.
Let's start with the fun news this week. The weekly COVID update. All right. So as of Thursday, February 11th, we have
COVID.
No, we have COVID.
None of us have COVID.
Yeah, no, actually, I was a little scared.
You got contacto estrecho, first contact.
No, not even. I just had like slight symptoms, or what I thought could be slight symptoms, and I was just like, if we weren't in this pandemic, I would have probably brushed it off. But I was like, yeah, we're in a pandemic, so let's get tested. So I got an antibody test because I didn't have the antigen test, and that one.
Dude, I swear to God, those antigen tests are just pointless.
Yeah, but I didn't take an antigen test. I took an antigen. The thing is, like, from what I understood, like, these antigen tests are likely to give you false positive, but they
cannot give you false negative. The problem is if you've been vaccinated, it's gonna be positive.
Right, but I was like, okay, like, but not necessarily. And I think that applies to the antibody test, not necessarily the antigen test.
Maybe.
So like, there's a lot of confusion there. Point is, I get an antibody test, got positive, so I was like literally like at the doghouse for the night. It was like, okay, I'm just gonna leave the room until. So then I ordered a PCR a domicilio at home. So because my logic was like, before I just get right away on a
that,
hunch,
and there are no appointments right now. That's an update. There are no appointments right now for like 4 days.
So that's why thankfully I can afford like to have one a domicilio, which was great. They came the next day. They had the result like online a couple of hours later, and turned out I was negative, which was like great. But I was also like, damn it. It was like 12 hours for nothing.
Right, and also those antigen tests are not cheap either.
Yeah, no, and the COVID at home and
no, not
expensive.
either. Yeah,
like,
no, I have a
PCR at home.
Well, I mean, my best friend Mary. Hey, Mary.
Yeah, hey Mary. Sorry, I'm saying
he always forgets to say hi to Mary. She had symptoms this week, and she could not get an appointment to get the PCR, because they're like, oh, you can get the PCR on Friday, and it's like, I need to not go to work. I have symptoms, and she ended up doing a domicilio, which, like you said, she can, because they're expensive, right? Like $40 or more.
Yeah.
And
50.
yeah, and she got the exam, negative PCR. She's got the flu.
But what you just said, I mean, that's the thing. It's like if you just suspect you have COVID, you don't get medical license. You don't get sick leave. We talked about this last time.
You have to
which
get,
is really shitty.
Yeah.
Like, combined with the fact that right now it's really hard to get a regular PCR
right, because so
appointment.
many people have COVID right now.
Yeah, or so many people have like contacto estrecho, and they want to just get tested just in case.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting back on track. So what I was saying is, as of Thursday, February 11th, we have 36,635 new daily cases. Positivity stands at 26.12%.
Sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay.
The reason why I was interrupting you is I realized, because we have so many people from the U.S. that listen to us, because we have a small population, that's a lot. I realized recently looking at the U.S. cases that sounds like not a lot.
No, but that's why I mentioned the positivity rate.
Right,
because
yeah,
that
but
puts this
that
thing
also
into
is like, it might be Spanish for some people, because they're like, oh no, but the U.S. had 119,000 last night, and that's good for us. And so I just want to like put it in perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That those numbers, according to our little bitty country's population, are huge.
Yeah, no,
huge.
That is a lot. That's actually right now. I mean, I think
that's
the same
quite,
the other day,
quite
like
a
this
bit.
graph, like daily infections, and it just like skyrocketed as of like, was it mid-January or something? It was just crazy. More daily infections.
It's quite
than
Locura.
Ever. Yeah, quite the Locura.
Quite
absolutely.
the Locura.
So this is the second highest daily number, just below the last record, which was recently established on February 4th, with like 37,000 something. And right now the ICU occupation is at about 90%. I think last time we recorded an episode it was about like 85, 87%. Slow but steadily rising, no?
Yeah, I have some statistics actually.
Yeah.
Let me get them out real quick because I realized. So 25% of those that are in the ICU are people. Wait, hold on. 63% of the people in the ICU are people who do not have their complete schema, the vaccination. So that's something to keep in mind. Like, you know, unvaccinated people are the majority of those numbers.
Yeah, but then also like people could say, well, if the remaining like 37% like are like people that are unvaccinated, that are vaccinated, like doesn't that mean that it doesn't work? No, absolutely not. Because you have
also old people, immunocompromised people.
No, and you have to look at the numbers. You have a huge population of vaccinated people, and if you compare this to the population of the ICU, like 36% or 37% compared to the overall population of vaccinated people is like vanishingly small.
Right, and then you also have to consider, let's say, you, as somebody, my father-in-law died this past year, like he was in the ICU, he would be counted as vaccinated. The fact he was in the ICU had nothing to do with COVID, but he was in the ICU. So there's still regular people in the ICU dying from just life. And then
dying from life. There's not more if I've ever heard one.
Existing. And, there's other things. So remember that even shrinks even more. So get your vaccines. They're working. Get your boosters. I'm sure you're going to talk about the fourth dose.
Yeah, that too. But what's actually more talking about the ICU right now? Like the share of COVID patients right now in the ICU has increased from 19 to 31% within the last 2 weeks. Yeah, so it's getting more and more, taking on more and more COVID patients. And the problem right now is that like the regular hospital bed occupation, like the non-ICU ones, is also starting to spill over in the ICU.
Right.
And that's also a problem because at some point you have people in the ICU that shouldn't be in the ICU because you have like so many COVID patients like absolutely overcrowding the regular hospital beds.
Right.
So that's another angle that people are not considering, Now,
Totally.
experts are expecting the number of the new infections to start falling quickly as of next week,
right,
more or less. And some are suspecting that around like 35,000, 40,000 daily infections is about as high as it will
They're
get.
falling in the U.S. Like if we're comparing to the U.S., they're falling in the U.S. for no other reason except for really herd immunity.
Yeah.
Basically, at least for Omicron.
Even though that's kind of like a myth apparently, but
I mean, it is a myth, but at the same time, if every single person has got, really, like.
You're immune for a while.
Right. So at this moment, right, so many people have either vaccinated or have gotten it that the numbers are starting to fall in the U.S. That does not mean that you can go back to living as the world has never been in a pandemic. Keep your guard up, wear your masks.
Absolutely. And now since we were just talking about the PCR test, how it is just so difficult to get an appointment, not only that, right now the PCR test results, they take way too long.
Oh my gosh!
Like in some parts of town here in Santiago, for example, in the district of San Miguel, it can take up to 8 days, which is well past the maximum quarantine time. Like if you got COVID, you have to quarantine for 7 days. Like imagine being quarantined and then after the 8th day you receive your COVID positive. You might as well just leave the house then because you're over it. But that's not the idea, right? So also that there's a suspicion of a lack of PCR tests, like basically that the government is running out of PCR tests, which the health ministry denies, but like the mayors of Santiago's Pedro Aguirre Cerda district as well as Quilpué, they have voiced their concerns as they are not receiving the quantities that they were asking for in PCR tests. Like it sort of backs my suspicion that I was talking about the last time, that there are a lot more antigen tests that are being used that give you a lot of false positive, which might also explain the high positivity rate right now.
Right, but how do you even report positive antigen tests? Do you?
I guess that if you go to like an institution,
if you want a licencia, maybe, because again, like let's say me, I'm an independent worker, I don't get licencias, like I don't get time off work, time paid for being sick. So that's what licencia means. And then if I was tested positive in an antigen test, and I was like, oh shit, I would have who am I going to report to, and why would I? I would just isolate for 7 days, right?
But I think what they mean is like if you go to an institution like a medical center, whatever, and you get tested there.
Oh.
And I guess it could go both ways. They could either test you with an antigen test or with a PCR. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So right now in Coquimbo, they are not only receiving less than half of the PCR tests that they ordered, they are also running out of testing capacity.
What is with Coquimbo? Do you remember that Coquimbo was the city that had like the highest positivity rate like a few months ago? What's going on over there?
Yeah, maybe this is why they're not giving them any more tests.
No more for you,
Sweep
Coquimbo.
it under the rug. Like, we don't want to hear from you guys anymore.
What's going on? I'm super interested.
They're running out of testing capacity right now because before they were like supported by other labs in other regions to just work on those tests, but apparently this is not happening anymore. I don't know for what reason.
Everything's collapsed.
Could be, right, could be, or maybe that like these little like agreements that they had run out. I have no idea, but as a consequence right now of the long waiting time that many of the people that had the PCR test taken, they returned to the doctor's office to try to find out what the fuck is going on. And that, of course, many of those are infected, and they are thereby provoking the spread of the virus. That makes things even worse.
100%.
Okay, and also as we mentioned last week, the government implemented a new contact tracing strategy, and that has absolutely failed.
What even happened there?
Yeah, well, they said that basically, and apparently before that was a thing. Before, the thing was that if you were COVID positive, apparently the government was in charge of either holding you responsible to or tracing or like back tracing themselves your close contacts before. Now this is squarely on you if you're COVID positive.
Yeah, no, that ain't gonna happen.
So yeah, that ain't gonna happen, and that has totally failed. Like since the MinSal has put the MinSal is the Ministry of Health, has put the responsibility of notifying those close contacts of the infected themselves, the number of contacts identified per COVID patient has dropped from 3.5 people to 0.05.
Yeah, nobody's gonna do. Imagine, like, okay, for example, there were a lot of people that were contacto estrecho at a park recently, people we know. Like, there was at a party in a park that was, like, responsible outside, blah, blah, blah. Somebody had it there, and then everybody had to get tested. Imagine, you're there, you know 4 people, you don't know the other 10, right? So you might, if you do it, which I bet they didn't even know. Again, they're not making it easy to do either, because you get a positive PCR test, and then what happens? Does the government contact you? I've never had a positive PCR, so I wouldn't know.
I was told by the guy who actually took the PCR test yesterday from me, he was like, look, if your result comes back positive, then a copy will be sent to the Ministry of Health, and they're basically going to take procedures, which is probably going to be like, they're going to block my mobility pass and maybe just check up on me. But
are they asking you who you've seen?
And that's the thing, probably not, or not anymore. I guess it used to be like that before. I haven't had COVID yet, so I cannot attest to that. I don't understand why they changed
this. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, look, okay, here's the thing. Like, for me, like, and I think I've raised that question before because I'm such an authority.
Is Pineda just trying to look good?
No, I think, like, look, I think, yeah, that too. But I think, like, how relevant right now is contact tracing? How relevant is it still? That's the thing, because but then why even make a new rule about it?
Like, if it's not that important.
Because I think you could make the argument that by taking this responsibility off the government's shoulders, they might free up resources that they could deploy otherwise. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's their intent, but that's like the way that I would make sense of it. Because in a way, personally, I think given the virulence of the Omicron strain right now, contact tracing it's kind of like just
tough, virile, manly.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very manly strain, so it might be, Perth before South in a way.
I mean, that would make sense. I doubt that that's what's going on, knowing
I really want to
believe
that this
government,
is
but you know the way things are.
I know.
But well.
Right.
It's going on. I still to this day have not, as far as I know, had COVID.
Yeah, we might.
I think
as well
everybody
have had
in this room hasn't had it. I've been proud of us.
Yeah,
look at us.
We don't know that. Maybe
I mean, we don't. Like, that's the thing.
At some point, there were like 25% of the tests were asymptomatic.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I mean, I think I said the last time I was on the podcast with you guys, my mother-in-law tested positive. I hadn't seen her. She had no symptoms. Not a one.
Yep.
Nothing. Not a sniffle. Not a headache. Nothing. Not a one.
Sniffle.
Not a sniffs.
No sniffs here in this house.
Yeah.
Right. Well, in other COVID-related news, like that was actually quite impressive, I thought. According to a recent Ipsos poll, more than 60% of Chileans are in favor of having another quarantine decree in order to slow the advance of Omicron. I was like, we're talking about the same country here?
I know. I was surprised at that. I was like, is it because there's been a lot of people who have had it? Because, for example, my family and my friends mostly have not had it. And so they haven't suffered any real negative consequences personally of it. But imagine maybe if your grandpa died and then you have that trauma of like, it's spreading again. Oh my God. I mean, but I don't know. Because for me, I was like, I don't want to fucking go back into quarantine.
But then again,
I'm vaxxed, ready to go.
On a nationwide scale, I mean, Chile has always been ahead of the curve when it came to vaccination. And there were a lot of countries that like relatively have been hit a lot worse than Chile has. So don't want to say that there aren't people that have, hit on hard times when it came to that, but it's just weird because I just see like Chile, South American country, who just like we don't play by the rules, like that's like, I love you, Chile. I've been living here for 15 years, but this is how it always has been. It's just like rules are made to be broken. This might as well be the dilemma of the state. And now everybody be like, yeah, we're wearing masks outside. Everybody's getting vaccinated.
We
want another quarantine. What's going on?
We all blacked out that entire almost year, 8 months that we could not. I mean, it's even insane. I say it all the time when I'm on here. It's even insane to think about the fact that we could not leave our homes for 8 months. Like,
yeah.
I don't think you understand, whoever's listening, unless you lived it. You don't understand how intense that was.
And people abided by it mostly.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes, we did. And now people are like, let's do it again. I'm like, what? I feel like we're in a time warp of
And I compare this to my home country of Germany. Good old law-abiding, square
and
rules. Rules are rules, Germany.
And
they are like out on the streets protesting the COVID measures and like.
No, what? I mean, my country has never. My former country has never been one to follow rules.
Former country, damn.
Girl, I've been here for 8 years.
So you're not American anymore. You're not American.
I am American. Hey, todos son americanos. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's so good. Please.
I live in America still.
I have another sip of my delicious Chilean Becker Budweiser.
So, yeah, it's. I just want to emphasize, if you don't know what it feels like to not leave your apartment for 8 months, don't talk to me. It's intense.
Hey, if you got Netflix, you're cool.
Oh, I think I read 55 books in 2020.
Christ, such an intellectual.
I pretty much am.
All
listen to how smart I am on this podcast.
So smart.
So, do you have anything else for COVID?
Yep, I got 3 more points there. Quick points.
Damn you.
There's a lot of COVID things going on, but very disparate. So, on Thursday, February 10th, Chile received a new shipment of 308,490 doses of Pfizer-BioNTech, which will be used in
next booster shot.
Exactly, because as of Monday, February 7th, Chile started giving the second booster shot to the Gen Pop, the general population, starting with
not
people
just Gen Z,
aged
Gen Pop.
No, Gen Pop. Starting with people aged 55 and over that have received the last booster until August 15th, 2021. And as a last point, bad news, good news. The WHO confirmed that the BA2 variant of the Omicron, which is also called, which I think is great, Omicron's daughter, which sounds like a fucking It's called like it sounds like a Stephen King.
I love it.
It sounds like a Stephen King novel, right?
Yeah, it does.
The
it does.
Omicron's daughter. Like it's just as dangerous as the original Omicron.
Those like romance novels?
Huh?
Yes, you've seen those romance novels that are hilarious. It's
like Fabio.
Yes, but it's like people falling in love with like the spiritual entity of Jesus Omicron. Christ. I'm like, okay, if you're an author out there, there are so many hardworking writers out there in the world trying to like put their art out there. I am so sorry to you because it is not fair that somebody's like
it's a
reading.
Payday.
You guys, you keep going. I support you. If you've written a book, message us on Instagram, or I want to support you, but damn, that must be a slap in the face.
Yeah, actually, you sent that through the chat. I don't know who I think Anna sent it through the chat. You sent it through the chat.
We sent it through the chat, but I had sent it like a year and a half ago, something similar, because it like happened almost immediately
like
after
I forwarded
COVID.
it to my sisters, and my sister was just like, "It's official. There are no more niches anymore. Like, it's everything is taken already."
I mean, so, as an NA reader, other NA readers just go whoop whoop. Okay, I like my literature, and also I have a master's degree in literature. I like my books to be relatively with a plot. Good. You know, I mean, I can do some smut. You know, it doesn't have to be great literature, right? You know, I can be flexible, but don't come at me like with this Omicron Fabio business. Again, there's so many great people out there writing really great literature who are like really working hard to get their stuff out there, and these people are buying Omicron stuff. I can't.
So yeah, Omicron's daughter, next
daughter,
New York Times bestselling list, number 1.
Omicron's.
So they said it is just as dangerous as the original Omicron variant.
More contagious, though, right?
But more contagious.
Yeah.
So
it's the same
get ready. They say that it's probably going to replace the original Omicron variant in a matter of a month. So be ready, get your booster shot, and that's all that I have for COVID. Wasn't that fun?
Yeah, that was so much fun. I have more fun news. So here's the thing. We've talked about this before. Undeniably, the truckers that protest in Chile are typically right-wing, and I'm going to be... Like, I don't mind being political over this because they're being assholes and they are protesting against migrants right now. They're being assholes to migrants, immigrants that are coming into Chile. As an immigrant, I can't, like, abide by any of that, even though people are like, oh, you're a good immigrant. I'm like, you know what? screw that thought that because I came from the U.S., I'm a good immigrant. No, I'm an immigrant. People come to places for jobs and for different reasons. And so these asshole truckers are protesting immigrants and cutting off shipments to different cities. That's making the economy suffer and making people suffer, not having enough food. So it's total crap. And anyway, that's so crap. However, the fact that a trucker died during one of the protests is crappy too. So the truckers, like I said, were protesting against migration because they're blaming immigrants for the rise in crime. And they were protesting in northern Chile last week. And so a trucker fell from a bridge and died during an argument with a migrant. And the migrant was later arrested. So there's not a lot of details around what happened, but a lot of people are saying, like, the trucker was murdered and all of these kinds of things. And the person who was arrested is from Venezuela. So the union leaders for the protesting truckers held a teleconference with Sebastián Piñera and the Interior Minister. Quote, "There is a call to dialogue and to understand that with dialogue we're going to have good results in terms of public order and security." And that was Maximo Paves, which was the representative from the president's office, which doesn't make me feel good that they're like security rather than like it's really bad that people are being so hateful. And I mean, because if you don't know, if you don't know what's going on with the protests, they're like taking immigrants out to the streets and beating them. They're burning their houses. They're burning their meager possessions because a lot of immigrants in the north are really poor because they're people crossing the border. It's really horrible. And so this is what happened, and the police are currently investigating the death. And in general, migration has been a big concern of voters, and we talked about this last podcast about how people are already blaming Boric for this and for not doing anything, who is our president-elect, but he can't do anything because he isn't president yet. And he responded like, "I would love to do something about this. I'm very much aware of the situation, but I can't do anything because I don't take over till March 11th. Yeah. It's also Boric's birthday today. Yeah. So happy birthday, Boric. He's 36. Boric. He's no longer 35. He's 36. One. So that happened. It's very sad. We'll keep you updated on those.
Not the birthday, you mean the death.
Oh, yeah. The birthday's happy, the death is sad.
Happy birthday. It's very sad that happened.
No. Well, actually, this is one of the reasons why Boric, one of the things that he said, we've, again, talked about this before, but one of the things that he wants to do is he wants to build a train through Chile. That way, if truckers go on strike or something, that there's not a cut off of resources. Yeah, there's no monopoly. There's no way that the people of the whole entire country are going to suffer because of whatever the qualms are with the truckers. Truckers should be able to protest if they're not, burning people's homes down. People should have the right to protest as part of what is your right as a citizen here, not as an immigrant, by the way, which is kind of crappy. But that's one thing that Boric wants to do, to make sure that supply chains don't get cut off, because it really does give like a huge power to these truckers.
You know what I hate most about this whole thing, this death? It's not the death itself. I mean, of course, the death is horrible, and I feel sorry for this trucker's family, but like what I hate most about this whole thing is just water on the mills of this anti-immigrant rhetoric.
Yep, 100%.
This is just going to fuel the right-wing rhetoric. It's like, see, been telling you, it's all them immigrants who cause all them crime.
And you know what makes me even more angry is there were videos, remember, of that 16-year-old kid during the protests, I think it was in the late 2019, like after the beginning of the social movement, like November, December, and there was a video of a Paco, of a Carabinero, the police, pushing a 16-year-old off of the bridge, and he died, right?
No,
he did. I don't know if he died, but he like got really, really injured, almost died, and it was like totally forgotten because again, the government of Chile hasn't done hardly anything. I mean, even if he didn't die, so many other people who were protesting, children, like 16, 17, 18-year-olds died, lost eyes, and yet the government has done nothing, even though internationally Chile has been recognized as violating human rights. Nothing has been done, and yet that this thing is going to fuel the anti-immigrant rhetoric.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard it in people I know, my students, being like, but the drugs are going up. I'm like, who's buying the drugs, dude? Chileans are buying the drugs. Let's not blame the immigrants.
I mean, okay, let's be fair. I mean, it's not like, okay, this was going to push the anti-immigrant rhetoric. It's not like that the left wasn't outraged when the thing happened with the 16-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, and they pushed like I make air quotes here, the anti-Carabinero rhetoric, so to speak. Of course, people were like highly critical Carabineros, but the thing is like merit right now. Okay, like, do they deserve to be criticized for that? I think so.
Yeah.
Do immigrants as a whole, as a concept, need to be criticized for being murderous? Like, no.
It's common sense. Like, dude, there's a 16-year-old kid going up against a fully armed. I mean, if you've seen, I don't know if you've
that's
seen.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, you listener have seen how armed these people are. You have not seen an armed police officer till you've seen a fucking armed carabinero. They're armed to the teeth.
Well, the branch of the military.
They are a branch of the military here. And they're armed with tanks. Like, in the streets, the 16-year-old kid physically pushed videos of it off this bridge. And if I can tell you right now, I am an immigrant. If my boyfriend was born in Bolivia, now he's lived here his whole life, he's nationalized, and nobody knows he's basically, if you meet him, you would never know he's from Bolivia. But I swear, if somebody came after my boyfriend and started burning our shit because he was born in Bolivia, I guarantee you I'd go and get in somebody's face. And I'm not saying I would never push anybody. I'm not a violent person at all. I've never touched anybody in my life, but I can just see how a conflict can get started and escalate into a point of, like, if you come after my family, like, if you come after anybody's family, like, burning my shit down because I live here, because my boyfriend was born in a different place, and I mean, they're burning baby strollers, they're burning like, what are you? Disgusting. It's just disgusting. And I'm like, I feel bad. You know what? That trucker has a family and everything, but you know what? I'm disgusted that he was there in the first place. He did not deserve to die. Nobody deserves to get hurt in a protest. But, dude, the hate, I can't with the hate. Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of hate going on right now, especially in the north, which is, things are getting a little bit out of control up there in the northern regions. About 2 weeks ago, and I think, as far as I know, it's still going on, there have been, like, massive anti-immigration protests in Iquique, gross. In the northern town. Well, basically the same town you were just talking about.
Yep.
Like, so that protest about 2 weeks ago, that was about 4,000 people strong, demanding the expulsion of what they called foreign criminal elements, you know. Tents were torn down, and at least one person was assaulted by the crowd. And the protest was actually triggered by a video that showed two carabineros being attacked by suspected Venezuelan drug traffickers, or drug dealers, if you will. The jury's still out on that one, but that's the video. So, still, the carabineros during that protest, they have made no arrest, as there had not been any quote-unquote serious disorder, right? And one day later, in the town of Arica, about 1,000 people, and also mainly truck drivers, they blocked the southern access road into town, protesting the increased crime rate and violence, prompting the Minister of the Interior, Rodrigo Delgado, to travel to Iquique and sit down with the protesters and talk about a way out of this situation. At this point, it's pretty much everything that the current government can do, because they really can't do more than just sit down and talk, to be honest. So in general, as I was saying, like, the situation is getting heated up in the northern regions, from a general strike in the Tarapacá region as well, to the protests about increased violence in the zone. And while the focus is in general on security issues, because, I would say that the vast majority of people who actually go out on the streets, they are mostly worried about, it's not anti-immigrant per se, like, what motivates them is security issues, but they have a strong anti-immigration rhetoric. That's what's concerning,
Immigration, no matter where you are, is super, super complex.
Yeah.
And you've been here for 15 years. I've been here for 8. And I do not have my permanent residency. Imagine if you got here right before the pandemic. You're not allowed to work in Chile if you don't have a visa. But you can legally be here because you're called en trámite, in the process of your visa. Yeah. I have been in process for my definite visa for 3 years. Imagine
legal limbo.
You want to be here. You want to work legally, but you legally cannot get a contract and work legally in this country till you have that official visa. What are you going to do? what do? Your family is starving. You don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
And so we say, oh, the drug traffickers, the da-da-da-da-da, the XYZ. Look, you don't understand what it's like.
Yeah, or you have to work off the books, and then you're automatically
And then you're
delinquent.
My Spanish teacher told me today, not today, but a couple days ago when I had class with her. She's from Peru. And she was living in Chile, and she got in a really bad accident. She got really hurt, and she went to the emergency room. And when she went to the emergency room, she was like, okay, I have this insurance. How much do I need to pay? Because she just wanted to know, like, how much she needed to pay. And at the emergency room, they told her, no, you don't have to pay anything because you have FONASA, you're covered. And she was like, okay, great. And a few weeks later, she received a bill. And so she went back up to the hospital, and she said, I'm confused because I was told I don't need to pay, but here's the bill, so what's going on? And the woman at the counter screamed at her and said, you immigrants want everything for free.
Jeez.
And she was like, of course, she just stood there. She was like, I don't know what to do. Like, she went up there because she was confused. She was told she didn't need to pay. She was willing to pay. She just was confused.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Is this do I need to pay? Is there a clerical error? Like, what's going on? And in the end, she didn't have to pay because she had insurance. She was legally here. She had insurance. She didn't have to pay. But this woman who worked at the hospital took it upon herself to be like, you immigrants, XYZ. And it's like, look, you don't understand. If you aren't an immigrant or you've never immigrated, take a step back because it is so hard. No matter what country, it's hard. It's expensive.
Yeah, and especially if you come from, let's say, a underprivileged country, if you will.
Right. Look, I'm saying it's hard, and I'm from the frickin' U.S.
Yeah.
Like, imagine being from Haiti or Peru or
Colombia,
Venezuela,
whatever,
Colombia.
yeah.
Like, it makes me so angry, and it makes me like, I can't.
Yeah, right. So, in getting back to the topic, so in front of this backdrop, the future Minister of the Exterior, Alejandra Urrejola, she stepped up, and, well, I guess her pronouns is her, she. So she stepped up and urged for the Escazú agreement to be ratified by the incoming administration ipso facto. And actually, I just want to talk a little bit about this because I think I did some research about this before, and you talked with Alicia about this before briefly.
Season
But it's I delved into it a few months ago, which is a really interesting thing, because first and foremost, this agreement is about the rights of access to information about the environment, public participation in environmental decision making, environmental justice, and a healthy and sustainable environment for current and future generations. Unquote. But it also touches on questions of human rights and their violations in general. So it last made the news in December last year when Javiera Rojas, who was 43, she was found beaten to death in Calama, who was well known for her activism in the region, like the opposition to dam projects. And the whole thing about the Escazú agreement is that, ironically, Chile helped to negotiate this treaty and has been instrumental in making it happen, but it hasn't signed it in the end.
Yep.
So what happened there? So the official argument of President Piñera was that it could expose the country's sovereignty in international courts at a time when it was holding a dispute before the International Criminal Court with its neighbor Bolivia for an exit to the sea.
Gross.
And they also said that it was not the core issue, but the wording that it was not the core issue of the agreement, but the wording that could become problematic. However, like on October 2021, when the so-called Pandora Papers became public, it turned out that the Piñera family sold the Dominga mining project to Mr. Carlos Delano for about $152 million. Delano, which is, I think, one of the best surnames ever.
Delano means of the anus.
Yeah, it took me, just don't ruin it. Bethany, it took me like literally 5 years not to snicker at this like a freaking 12-year-old.
If your name is Delano, change your name.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it'd be like if your last
To
name
Depoto,
was, if my last name was Bethany of the penis, of the butthole. Nobody should keep that. If you're proud to be of the butthole, I mean, you know what? Good on you. But I'd change my name.
It should be Delano, but okay, fine.
Of the butthole.
So Mr. Carlos of the butthole, so he bought this Dominga mining project from the Piñera family for about $152 million. $152 million. Who was to pay the family in 3 installments. And the last of which was around 9 million, which seemed very little considering the overall price, but okay, that was only to be paid under the condition that the area in which the mine is located would not be declared an environmental protection zone. So now you get why Pineda didn't want to have the Escazú thing ratified, because he saw its own... Okay, this is all allegedly, of course, and yada, yada. But,
allegedly.
Yeah, but you can draw your own conclusions. So given what Boric has talked about on his campaign trail and his very strong focus on environmental politics and everything and human rights, he is probably going to, actually, I'm hoping that he is going to get the Escazú agreement ratified as soon as possible.
That's going to be like, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens with Boric. If you don't, even if you don't agree with his politics, like the fact that he's just not an investor in like big things that are happening in Chile is kind of nice. Like, I mean, it's just nice to know that, he's not making money off the land. It's kind of nice to seek that. Speaking of land, so Codelco, which is the mining company, the copper mining company owned by the state, is going to be trying to get a sustainable certification by 2023. So Codelco is the world's top mining it's the top mining producer of copper. But do they produce or do they? Okay, anyway.
I mean, they mine copper.
They mine copper, right? It says
if
producer.
You could produce copper out of thin air, that would be so great.
Copper miners are increasingly looking to prove their sustainability credentials as buyers are starting to pay attention to the impact of products. And of course, Codelco is super important to Chile because it is the only state-run mining project. So the Copper Mark was developed in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to demonstrate that copper production is done responsibly. And Codelco said, since 2021, we have traced 100% of our production according to the standards that are comparable to the criteria required by the International Assurance System, the Copper Mark. So we hope that the process to obtain certification will be smooth. And that was the Vice President of Corporate Affairs, Renato Fernandez. And Codelco says its flagship El Teniente mine will be the first division to participate in the initiative. To receive the certification, each mine must meet 32 sustainability criteria relating to issues such as greenhouse gas emissions, health and safety, tailings management, which I have no idea what that means.
Which one? What?
Tailings management? No, I don't know.
Booties?
How much booty? No. Biodiversity, business integrity, gender equality, and human rights, which I appreciate that the fact that sustainability also somehow includes gender equality and human rights, but awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Shit, why not? Gift horse.
And then they will evaluate every 3 years. So I think that's super cool. Go Codelco, go.
It is, yeah. Go Codelco.
Go Codelco, go. Yeah, I like it. Okay, so we started with the harsh things. So mine's kind of cool. This is I'm going to talk a little bit about Chilean film and art. So the Chilean short film Bestia, which was directed by Hugo Covarrubias, has been nominated for an Oscar award this year for Best Animated Short Film. It was learned that the project, based on the life of Ingrid Olderuk,
Olderuk.
There you go.
Olderuk.
There you go, German. An intelligence agent obviously not a good guy, an intelligent agent during the good girl, Augusto Pinochet dictatorship will compete in this category of short films. Actor Leslie Jordan and producer Tracy Ellis Ross were in charge of making this news known. In the same category of Oscar 2022, the short films Affair of the R, Robin Robin, and Box Ballet, and Windshield Wiper will compete. So what this is about is Ingrid,
Olderuk.
There you go. Is one of the sinister figures responsible for human rights violations in Chile. She is known as the Dog Woman because she used animals, usually her dog named Volodia, to sexually abuse people detained in the La Venda Sexy torture center. It's called La Venda Sexy. Yeah. I know.
That's not really horrible. That's just tasteless.
I think horrible's worse than tasteless.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not.
You mean not a good name?
It's like
let's
horrible,
not talk
but
about
it's also just.
No, I'm just I can't anyway. It sounds disgusting. I want to see it because I want to support Chilean art because here's the thing, Chile has amazing art and artists, but Chileans don't support their own art and artists. So if you're listening to this, go watch it, buy it, pay for it, support these artists. So actually, it's sort of a new dawn for the audiovisual industry in Chile.
And go to the Chistola shows.
Oh yeah, go to our shows. Yeah, support
couldn't
us.
let that slip.
I didn't even. Yeah, that's a good segue.
It's not all Chileans, but hey.
Hey, it's February 19th, 3,000 pesos. Support local artists. And you can meet me and Pinguino. Actually, I won't be at the show, but I'm coordinating it. Pinguino will be. So Gabriel Boric, 36 today. He was elected in December. He pledged more than double the state's contribution to arts, which obviously was greeted with a lot of fanfare.
Which probably is not that much anyway.
Honestly, no. And the thing is Chile has a very prestigious, especially for such a small country, film community. So this quote says, "If everything we have achieved in the last 10 years was done with so little money, imagine what we can achieve with an increase in audiovisual funding."
I think that was pretty... Sorry, but I think that's actually politically a very smart move, because he probably was looking at, okay, what are the budgets, what are the assignments here? It's like, how much did we put into arts? Like, really? Really? And he's probably like, you want to double that, that's a win for me politically. It's good for because I can just say, it's like, I just doubled this whole thing. It's not a lot of money. It's not going to hurt the freaking budget of the administration.
But he's also from Universidad de Chile, which is art.
No, I'm not saying that he's not supporting it anyway, but it's also like a smart move to make just politically.
Right. So in recent years, Chile has triumphed at the Oscars, and it started with Pablo Larraín's No. Have you seen No? It is so good.
No.
Really? Pinguino and I were talking about this recently.
But, in my defense, I really do not watch a lot of movies.
What's really cool about No is they actually, so it's about the See No campaign when we were coming back to democracy. What's really cool is that actually have the same actors that were involved, not the actors, they weren't actors at the time, the same people that were involved in the campaign come back to do the movie. And so you see those same exact people, and they look older, but then then they show the real footage of the campaigns. It's really cool. Right. So it's No. That's all it's called. It's on Netflix. It's really, really good. Okay, anyway. So that was nominated in 2012, and it's a really great movie. I've watched it for the second time literally last week, which my boyfriend had never seen, again, because Chileans don't watch Chilean stuff, and it makes me insane. So then there was an Oscar win for Sebastián Lelio's A Fantastic Woman, which is about the trans woman who lives in Chile, and that was in 2017. So there was also Maite Alberdi's documentary, The Mole Agent.
I've seen that one.
You've seen that one?
Yeah, I can actually book that one as a win.
I haven't seen it. Did you like it?
It was not an easy one. It was a bit of a drag, to be honest. I guess that's the reason why I don't watch a lot of movies, because I'm just like, this has no fleshy CGI. What's going on? Yeah,
you're a nerd.
I just it was.
It's not a lot of bangs and laughs. Lenny's not interested.
No, but it has this powerful social message embedded in it, so that's what kind of made it interesting.
Right up my fucking alley.
Absolutely.
So so there's been a lot of really amazing things happening in Chile. So then there's also this quote: "For every peso that the state has invested in our cinema, the sector has managed to raise only 3." And it says the investment made by the state has tripled in the hands of the sector due to financing that comes mainly from abroad and private investors. So it's like Chile, we gotta support our artists, man. They're doing awesome internationally. People, I was just talking off audio to you guys about how the #1 Latin American writer right now is a Chilean, and I do not know Chilean that's read her. It's Valiente. I have not. Okay, I lied. Pinguino. I've just found out.
A Chilean
Pinguino.
human.
Yeah, Pinguino, who spent some of his life in the U.S., so that doesn't surprise me. Boric pledged nearly double the budget, as I said earlier. This is currently between 0.3% and 4% of the federal budget to 1%. This may seem like a small change, but this translates to a leap from 328 million to 821 million. So this is going to be a huge jump for the audiovisual industry. And this quote says, securing funding is also slow and bureaucratic. It's much easier to get foreign funding than local funding normally. So then there was Guillen Carlo Nassi. He's a Quixote films producer and founder president of Chile's Academy of Cinematography Arts. He said, Boric is the same as me, he points out. Previous governments promised to increase funding for the arts and failed to do so. So we're hopeful it will be different this time. So it's really, I don't know, like a positive thing that he's supporting this. There's people who saying that they've been neglected. The country has been receiving a lot of international money and support and praise, and like a lot of the presidents have been like, look at us, look how good we're doing, but they haven't been supporting, and so it's like left a really bitter like taste in a lot of the artists' mouth. Like, yeah, we worked our butts off to get to where we are with no money and no support, and yet you're tweeting about how great Chile is, and you haven't, and the citizens and the government haven't been supporting. So.
Patting your own shoulders,
patting your own shoulders,
doing
exactly.
Nothing for
so
it.
I'm hoping that we can slowly, with support from the president-elect, eventually going to be in March, the president, will also push other Chileans to support this. There's actually a movie right now in theaters, a cartoon that's Chilean. It's about like a little, I haven't seen it yet. It's like a little Mapuche girl and like a wolf.
Really?
Yeah, and it's in theaters, and it's
called?
like, I don't remember what the name is. But it's like failing in the theaters because nobody's going to see it. Like, take your kids to go see these movies.
Yeah, because also it's in the theaters right now. It's not a lot of people go to the theaters these days for obvious reasons.
You want to know how many people went to the theaters to go see Spider-Man in Chile?
I mean, probably a lot more than for Chilean indie, like short film.
You're
But
gonna take I'm just saying, like.
yeah, but what I'm saying is like if we were in normal times, like a lot more people would have gone.
Okay, this is called Nahuel y el Libro Mágico. It's what it's called.
Doesn't ring a bell. I thought I've heard about it, but no.
And okay. So what I'm saying also is because I know Chile. I live in Chile. I am a participant in the Chilean things of the default to download something when you want to see it. Pay money to these artists. These are independent artists. They're not affiliated with like huge companies like Warner Brothers, Disney, whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but pay these people. They deserve to have money. So go on, rent it online. Don't just download it. Support these artists.
Right on.
Right on, Smite on.
Right on. Well, talking about another Chilean invention, investigators from the University of Chile, the Universidad de Chile, they've come up with a concept for pizzas and energy bars made of ground-up crickets.
I had crickets when I was in Mexico.
Right on, crickets. I've had some buggity bugs in China, I think. I don't know if crickets were among them. I think so. Dragonflies, all the same in the end.
Are they? Are all bugs the same in the end?
You're insectist. Don't be insectist.
Don't be insectist.
So the objective of this project was to create a sustainable food alternative for Chileans to replace eventually meat. Yep, makes sense in a way. And they chose crickets just because that was like the weirdest justification for this whole thing. They chose it just because they have never been used for food before in the history of the country. Is like, okay, that's a criteria.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Let's use crickets. That's never been done before.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, okay, let's do that.
It's so Chilean, I can't even. This has never been done before. Let's try it.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Why not? So they brought live crickets to the lab, which were then frozen and later fried. And first they served the volunteers. They just gathered a few volunteers. They served them pizza with regular meat slices, carne mechada as they call it here. And then the other pizza was with fried crickets, but mind you, whole crickets. They didn't even ground it up. It was just the crickets were right on top of the pizza. But both pizzas apparently were well received. Though they had to admit the meat pizza was slightly more favored. I wonder why. It might have done that. Might have to do something with the presentation.
Who is quite open. There is a mental aspect to eating.
No kidding.
100%. And when I had crickets very recently, this year, only a couple months ago in Mexico, the thing was just knowing you're eating a cricket, and it's just mentally it's the thing.
Yeah.
Also, they're fucking crunchy AF. They when you eat it, it sounds and feels like you're eating a cricket.
Yep. Hold on. What? Really?
Yeah, it's
okay.
Crunch,
because my experience was more like potato chips, kind of likey.
You can feel that you're eating the leg. It's just a lot.
to
Now,
take in.
Again, if it was ground up or something, that'd be different. I've had like ground up like ants, like in like a salt in Mexico. That was really. I mean, couldn't see them. You couldn't. It wasn't. The texture wasn't different.
Right. And just like
But
don't tell me about it.
I don't believe you when you say that
Yeah.
both pizzas.
And I mean, you're right about
received.
this whole thing is about the presentation. I mean, I used to travel a lot to Peru for work, and you know the cuy, the
Cuy.
guinea
Oh
pig.
my goodness, yeah.
Is very big on the food menu there. So, and I've tried it, but I tried it
too.
as one of these upscale restaurant called Astrid and Gaston. You might have heard of it. So it's very upscale, very good.
Sorry,
You might have heard of
You
it.
might have heard of it.
Oh, you're out of my
No,
league
I
here.
haven't. No.
It's upscale, it's nice, it's good food, whatever. And they had cuy there, and I was like, might as well try it. And the presentation was nice. It was like you don't know that it was that little rodent that you were eating,
but for
and it was
me-
tasty.
For
now
me,
the
like
thing
a
is,
piece, a dead animal, like a dead big animal, is not something that bothers me because I'm from Arkansas, and so like I've seen the spicketed pig and like all that stuff. That actually doesn't bother me as much as bugs do.
yeah, but okay,
So
look, but
because when I went to Peru, I actually had the cuy with the face and everything, but it didn't bother me. I
because,
just didn't
that's
like
the thing.
it.
It's like if
It's
you go to the
greasy.
countryside and like you have like a freaking. It looks like they take the entire guinea pig and they just like throw it into the deep fryer and they
Yeah.
just like pull it out and it's like with a little like.
That
buck teeth,
doesn't
like,
bother me. It's the same as like eating a
just
fish that has a face. It doesn't bother me at all.
yeah. Well, I
But
guess it's just like
didn't
depends on your
I just
definition
didn't
of
like
food
the
in a
guinea
way.
pig because
Yeah.
it's greasy.
Yeah, no, but that was a different preparation there. Anyway, coming back to this whole thing. So, as I said, like both pizzas, but also the cricket pizza was favorably received. Apparently, people liked it, which was surprising enough.
Lives.
And in terms of flavor, the cricket pizza did just as well as the meat pizza. There wasn't even they didn't even show an inclination towards the meat pizza. They also developed energy bars made out of ground up crickets, and those were also well received.
I could see that.
With a little difference in flavor compared to regular energy bars and maintaining a good level of satiety, mind you. So the investigators, they hope that they can take this idea to the market as it has a lot smaller water and carbon fingerprint than meat and other ingredients, So
Who's eating meat in an energy bar?
no, I mean, we're talking about pizzas and stuff
I'm
like
just
that. Made out of
saying.
bacon. Bacon energy
bar.
bar. Damn, how great would that be?
I want to know what the protein content is like from what they're using, like maybe the powders or whatever, compared to the crickets. Because if it's not any more protein and it's the footprint's about the same, if it's not meat, like why would you choose cricket over?
No, I think that because that's why
soy
they
or
explicitly mention not only the carbon but also the water footprint. Because for those
Sure.
crops you have to use a lot of water. So I
But
guess
how many plants do crickets eat in order to exist and
what
breed?
kind of plants do they eat? That's also
Right.
the thing. Like maybe also crops that don't need
All
a
I'm
lot of
trying
water.
to say is I support this, but I don't want to eat some cricket. I don't. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll you know
Well,
what?
you might not have a choice further down the
That's
road.
fine. You know what? If you guys are being like, if you eat cricket bars, it'll save the planet. I'll do it. I really will. I mean, I'm already like going.
I'm
off.
going to have my pork on a
I already
spit.
I already stomach the non-dairy milk, even though it's not my favorite. I'll stomach it for the universe, for the world, just for you,
You're
listener.
such a southern girl.
I
I want my meat.
I was raised in Arkansas. I mean, again, different perspective, right? Break. Peeing. Getting my last chip. Oh my goodness.
We're recording. They didn't record that, but
Leave it in. It's my pride. All right, people. Coming to our main topic today, the whole Chile-Venezuela thing. Now, let's top this off with a COA.
Cow.
Yeah, with a cow. We're not.
Coa.
We're
If you
Coa is a
can't
different
tell-
thing here.
If you can't tell so far,
Yeah.
we're not.
We're not professional journalists.
No, we are nerds, professional nerds who
Yeah.
are super invested in
Nerdy
politics
shit.
and nerdy shit because we like it. But we're not. If you happened upon this podcast thinking like, I'm gonna get some stuff,
Hard-hitting journalism. I mean, you got some with the cricket pizza.
I'm just saying we're not the worst journalists out there, but we're definitely not the best. There you go. That's what I'm saying
Yeah.
about it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. There's that. And also, that being said, now I just want to quickly mention that Bethany and I we've been knowing each other for a couple of years. I know where she stands politically. She knows where I stand politically, and we have not
Kill each other yet.
rehearsed, huh?
We haven't killed each other yet.
We haven't killed each other yet. No, we respect each other very much, but we have also a lot in that spirit. We have not talked about how we're gonna broach this subject.
Or
So,
wear our brooches.
yeah, not true. So this is going to be interesting because we're probably going to broach the subject from two different angles and two different perspectives. Now, let me start this whole thing off a little bit with a definition of the term Chilezuela. Because you might have heard about this because people were like, especially, when the whole thing with the Constitutional Convention got voted in. Well, actually, when after the Estallido Social and when people voted for the rewriting of the Constitution. And then later as well, when Boric got elected president, like the whole Chilezuela term came up again in the right-wing media and the right-wing sphere, right-wing rhetoric, if you will.
Which is Chile and Venezuela.
Exactly. And let me just quickly explain to you where that came from and why it is what it is.
He's nerdy.
Because I like stats, and there are a lot of stats, and no, there are no stats in there. I wouldn't even know how to put stats in there, to be honest.
15% of Chileans believe that.
If I could, I mean, there's probably
Chilezuela
1% in there. No, there are a few stats coming up, but, not that much. Anyway, so in November 2017, there's the first number, just before the runoff election between Piñera and Guillermo, the ex-athlete and center right-wing Renovación Nacional party member Erika Olivera, she said in a televised interview that she's going to vote for Piñera because she, quote, wouldn't want to live in a country like Venezuela. A week later, then Foreign Affairs Minister
because
Roberto...
Because she thought Guillermo would bring about Venezuela.
Yeah.
That is so funny.
Okay, now, dear listener, you got to know that Guillermo was actually under fire from the left side of the political spectrum for being too right-wing. Right? I mean,
for example,
he was more left than Piñera, sure, but...
come on. I would say that's not hard, but we did have an election between Cast and Boric recently.
Yeah,
so
no kidding.
That sounds... No, but
the
for example, a lot
little.
of my friends vote, because a lot of my friends are very, political, so they will go vote, but they voted, they put an asterisk. That means, you go physically to vote, but you say, I am not voting.
Yeah, or you draw a dick on the...
Yeah, no, I don't think that happened. I think it was very professional, at least in my boyfriend's
you know what asterisco means in Chilean Spanish, right?
Asterisk.
Yeah, no, I'm not even kidding.
Anotarisk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So anyway, that's rich with the Guillermo thing.
Yeah. So she was like, yeah, I don't want to live in a country that's like Venezuela, which also, prompted a lot of collective cringing there. Then a week later, then Foreign Affairs Minister Roberto Ampuero, he retweeted a tweet by Maduro expressing his support for Guillermo, which later turned out to be fake, which was not even something.
I cannot see that Maduro would ever support Guillermo.
Now,
Maduro is not, just also mentioning, Maduro is not really in support of Boric either.
Yeah, even though I think he congratulated him, but who didn't, it's...
Literally who didn't, which is something else we're going to get into.
Yeah, and...
Bolsonaro did too, so I just...
Yeah, right. So, yeah. Also, I don't want to say that Roberto Ampuero knew that it was fake. I don't think he would do that, but it's just,
Okay.
Huh? I mean, he's just see, Maduro is supporting Guillermo, so of course
How old is this man?
He
Does he know how to use a computer?
No, he's outside that age range, I guess. So this is when the term Chilezuela first started making its rounds on the internet. Now, right-wing UDI party member.
Oh, that's the member. That's the political party of Pinochet.
Thank you. Every time I say UDI, I point at Bethany, and then it's her UDI. It's her prompt to say that it's Pinochet's party.
Pinochet party.
So, right-wing UDI party member Mario Cáceres, he claims that he invented the term, but the jury's still out on that one. So apparently, it's like a collective invention of the internet.
Pinguino invented the term. We all know this.
We all know that little right-wing
How old
penguin.
Was Pinguino in 2017?
I don't know. Why doesn't Pinguino tell us?
21. Oh, barely drink in the U.S. So cute.
So cute. So, that word kind of got around at the time. It sort of disappeared. It got around like a record, then it disappeared for a while. But then it has resurfaced as of late, starting with the emergence of the Constitutional Convention, and even more so when it became increasingly clear that Boric was going to be the country's next president.
But also during the Estallido. That was a super big thing during the Estallido as well.
Yeah, but that was kind of when the... Yeah, okay, granted. In a way, the Constitutional Convention, Estallido kind of went hand in hand there.
It merged. I just remember being look, we're Venezuela. And I'm everybody, no, we're not.
Yeah.
You're still going to the store and getting your 10 things and boxes of milk because you have 10 children.
Yeah, and also because when the pandemic started, people were running out of toilet paper and people were see Venezuela.
So, and I'm then stop buying 80,000 rolls.
Yeah.
You're contributing to shortages.
Now it goes without saying that although many people use this term sarcastically, me included,
Yep.
and with a sense of humor, it is actually highly disrespectful towards Chileans and especially towards Venezuelans
100%.
because it insinuates the comparison with the Banana Republic, right? So, like, be careful. Don't throw this around lightly. It's a very despective term, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, like, be careful, especially if you're, like, visiting Chile and you're a gringo and you don't understand
the
necessarily
nuance.
your company. Like, for example, I know around my friends I can say it and they know who I am and they know
And how you mean it. Yeah.
and how I am and they know anytime I say it, I'm saying it in a way that is, like, making fun of the fact that that term even exists because it's so
Right.
ridiculous. But, like, and I have Venezuelan friends who use the term as well. And it's in the same vein, right? It's because it's ridiculous. But, again, you might say it in the wrong company and it can be extremely offensive to somebody. So,
Or you might have people be like, yeah, right?
yeah, like, actually believe that it is a real thing. And then it's
See,
like,
that's what I've been saying all
"And
along.
see,
you
we've
know?
basically, my dad owned 5 houses. Now he only owns 4.5. Venezuela.
Now, there are actually 2 interpretations of the term. Like, you also got to be clear of that. So, I think one interpretation, which I think is the less common one, is a fear of quote-unquote over-immigration by Venezuelans and the quote-unquote replacement of Chilean culture and values, you know?
I'm not involved enough with right-wing people to even think about
Yeah, but I think this is one of the interpretations.
that.
Now, right now, there are about,
I'm
talking about
getting angry
stats,
already. I'm getting angry
500,000, no, hold your peace for now. There are about like
my pee.
500,000 Venezuelans in the country, which is a third of all foreigners in Chile, which is, you know, and that was actually a number that they published in 2020 or something, or mid-2021. So it's probably going to be a bit more than that. So suffice to say that right now Venezuelans make up a third or even more of the overall foreigners in Chile. Yes.
Okay, I'm
In the
holding my
back,
finger.
Miss Francis.
Okay, so first of all, good for them, immigration. I'm supporting immigration of all types. Second of all, there's a reason that there are so many Venezuelans in Chile. It's because Venezuelans, because of Piñera, have a very, very easy road to immigration.
Or had.
No, they still do.
They do? Okay.
They do. The road to immigration for Venezuelans is easier than it is for you, a German, and for me, somebody from the U.S., which we have some of the easiest roads. For example,
Those damn Venezuelans taking
Because
away my
they-
immigration process.
I know, God damn. No, good for. I'm not like.
I'm just kidding.
I'm not like.
kidding.
How dare? I would love to have my papers as fast as a lot of my Venezuelan friends do, but that's just not how it is. So, for example, my best friend Mary. Hey, Mary.
Hey, Mary.
Her boyfriend is Venezuelan. He has not been here half the time that I have been here, and he already has his definitiva because they have a special route to immigration.
Right.
And that's a refugee route. And there's a lot of speculation for, like, why Piñera specifically, because he did this, like, created that refugee route. Like, a lot of leftists think it's because he wanted more voters that were Venezuelan to, like, support him. And there's, like, all of that. Like, we don't know if that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, like, if you're, like, hating on Venezuelans for immigrating, like, look, if you're a right-wing person hating on immigrants, put your anger towards the correct person, which is Piñera, who did this. Like, first of all, I don't think you should be angry anyway because immigrants are awesome and this is the
thought you were
backbone
gonna
of every
say,
first
like,
world country.
Put your anger onto, I don't know, Italians.
Yeah, but I mean, like
Just kidding, we love Italians.
I don't have any Italian friends.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it.
Oh, okay. I was like, I need Italian friends. I have a lot of friends from a lot of countries who know Italians.
Italians ruined Barrio Italia.
Which should be, by all means, be part of Nunio. We're going to come for you.
Okay, but all I'm trying to say is, like, again, nobody understands how immigration works, and then they get angry about things they don't even know how it works.
Right.
And it's like, look, why do we have more Venezuelans than anybody else? Because it's easier for them to immigrate than it is for any other nationality to immigrate. It's so much easier. So it just makes freaking sense. And if you're angry about it, how about you be angry at Piñera and not the Venezuelans? Like, somebody be like, here, Bethany, you can have a cookie. I'm gonna take the cookie. Why are you mad at me? They gave me the cookie. Like, shut up. Like, it's not my fault. The cookie was there. I'm just taking it. I don't know if that's a good metaphor. I'm just angry.
Right now, I want a cookie. But fun thing you mentioned the whole thing about the voting, because why am I mentioning this? That there are about 500,000 Venezuelans in the country, which make up, about a third of all immigrants in Chile, is because a lot of right-wing people, ironically enough, are just worried that, oh my God, like Venezuelans are gonna, influence the election. I'm getting there. Now, one thing is, yes, a lot of the Venezuelans that actually come here and have the right to vote are more likely to vote for the right-wing parties than for the left-wing parties, because there's a reason that they left Venezuela in the first place.
If you're left-wing Venezuelan, you're staying in Venezuela to support the left-wing government. Like, that's just well, I'm already worked up, Lenny. Right. I'm already worked up. We just started.
Right. Oh, not necessarily that. I would also say, like, you've had a very bad experience with the left-wing government there, So it's just like, you'd be like, okay, like, I'm branded here. Like, I don't want this to happen again.
And you say that.
And
okay, I'm not going into like. Okay.
See, this is what I said was going to happen tonight.
Okay.
Now,
I'm gonna stay away from that.
The thing is that people are very worried about, like, the Venezuelan vote. Like, you also have to consider that for now, only about 10,260 Venezuelans have the right to vote, which is about 2% of all Venezuelans in the country. Those are fewer than Colombians and even Ecuadorians who hold the right to vote here. Sure. So they're not really making a dent into the electoral process.
Which makes sense, because the refugee, you have to be here 5 years with a valid visa in order
absolutely
to vote.
Makes sense.
Right, so it makes sense, though.
But no sense for people to be worried about that.
Right, exactly, because for Piñera, one of the reasons, like, when he created that easy immigration platform or whatever, what have you, that wasn't 5 years ago. So this election that we just had, those Venezuelans that have come in since then wouldn't have the right to vote. Like,
he absolutely did not, have cast on his radar.
I don't think anybody had cast on their radar. I don't think anybody took him seriously. But I think, there's a lot of reasons Cass got where he is. Maybe we should make an episode about why did Cass get where he is. I think it's a little late for that. But
now, of all the foreign nationalities, you have to say that, of all the foreign nationalities that were allowed to vote, like, the Venezuelans had the biggest turnout as a community here. So, which, in a way, it's no surprise, given that they can, might disagree here, I don't know, but they can barely participate in their own country's electoral process. This is a few voices that I've heard from Venezuelans that were like, we don't feel that.
Depends on who you talk to.
Huh?
Depends on who you talk to.
I've heard, again, I've heard a few sound bites
you think that
here and there.
You've had a very good ability to participate in the electoral process, and if you're from the right, you don't. I mean, I'm just going from what I've heard from. Again, it's all anecdotal, right? Because we're only getting information from Venezuelan people who live in Chile. Right? It's the same for my Bolivian family, right? My boyfriend was born in Bolivia. The majority of his family is from Bolivia. They do not support the left-wing government. However, none of them voted. And so they're like, we can't participate in the electoral process. I'm like, well, you can't if you don't vote. And they're like, but we boycotted the vote. And I'm like, well, you didn't vote. And so, like, all of the right-wing boycotted the election because they automatically were like, it's corrupt. I'm like, but if you don't vote, like, how can you even know if the electoral... Of course the left's going to win if you don't vote. Now we can't even tell. Like, if you think everybody voted from the right and the left still won, at least you can, like, make an argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. That's a different can of worms right there. But
all I'm trying to
say
is it's complicated and very anecdotal. Yeah. It's just like... I mean, if you're from the U.S. listening to this, it's like talking to somebody from Cuba who's immigrated to the U.S. from Cuba. You talk to somebody from Cuba who lives in Cuba, they are going to probably have different perspectives.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Like talking to somebody who lives in the U.S. is going to be different than talking to me versus talking to somebody who lives in Germany versus talking to Lenny. There are different perspectives of your life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so this being one interpretation of the term Chilezuela, now there's another interpretation of the term, which is, I think, is a little bit more common one, is like the fear of Chile becoming more like Venezuela in economic and political and cultural terms, like you're talking about economic decline and hyperinflation, expropriations, authoritarian, oppressive left-wing regime. And I think this is more like the interpretation that we're going to focus on today, or for the next two episodes probably, Because
Because we support all immigrants and coming here and bringing their cultures and making the world richer.
that too. That was not really a because that I was going for, but yeah, sure, why not? Yeah. So right now, okay.
I just meant we're not going to argue against like the negatives of someone coming here and bringing their culture. No.
Oh no, not at all.
So
and
we're going to focus on the other term.
No, and I mean what Bethany and I are definitely going to try to do here, at least I try to like present you the facts as factual as possible in a way why Chile is probably not going to end up like Venezuela, which is, by the way, the topic. I don't think we've mentioned that.
Yeah, Chilezuela. Like
Chilezuela, yeah. Oh, if you can read the title, then you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about Venezuela versus Chile, how Chile is, and honestly, most people listening to this in English or that already sort of know this, it's sort of an internal fear, but I mean, it's worth talking about either way.
It is. Yeah, it's worth talking just because of that, because you hear this term being thrown around so much lately.
Yeah.
And it's a bit tiring to refute that. So, Now, the thing is that I know of several Venezuelans that are actually worried that Chile might go down the same path as Venezuela, because there are actually, and I think you might agree there too, there are some salient parallels in recent history right now. So both countries went through a massive civil unrest. Like Venezuela had the so-called Caracazo in 1989, and Chile had the Estallido Social in 2019. Both protests were fueled by very similar circumstances, like economic hardships and stuff like that.
What was the year of their protest?
It was 1989, the Caracazo in Caracas mostly, and also around the countries. Now, people of both countries.
There's no difference between the 80s and the 29.
No, but I'm saying what I'm saying. Recent history, recent history, because So people of both countries, they were getting tired with their respective corrupt political elites that didn't deliver on promises, and both countries then saw the emergence of an unlikely underdog who promised radical change, and both countries at around the same time within the sequence of events, they were set to draft a new constitution. However, there are some key differences which I would like to point out too. I think you have a few there too. So I don't know if you don't mind. I'm going to get started.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll interrupt you if I need to scream.
Oh boy. So first off, and I think this is going to be the one with the most screaming there.
Oh no.
Like Boric and Chavez, they did not assume power under the same conditions, under the same circumstances. Now, why both were democratically elected, also like this bears repeating, Chavez was democratically elected.
Yep.
Like a lot of people assumed that he came into power by a coup d'etat. He did try the coup twice.
No, that's the right wing, honeys.
Yeah, well, he did try to take the government by force. That was twice in 1992, two unsuccessful coup, But, and again, that's a personal opinion. You might shout at me.
No.
Like, I think that kind of shows his lust for power and uncompromising nature when it comes to Chavez, which is not really how I would see Boric right now. And remember, we're talking about how Chile's not going to be...
Right. Again, I think it's very important to make the distinction between the individuals here.
Exactly.
Right? So one was Boric, I don't feel like is a revolutionary at all.
No, no.
I'm sorry. Like, if you're a leftist, you don't look at Boric and go, oh, he's a revolutionary. He's like a Fidel or a Che. No, he's a politician.
Yeah, he's not even Eduardo.
Right? Chavez was like, I'm going to change this country through hell or high water.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. And I think a lot of leftists, like extreme leftists and leftists of all like political affiliations, would agree. Like, he's like, I'm gonna change Venezuela through hell or high water. And Boric has always been very, very compromising, even to the point where his own party has called him amarillo, meaning like that he compromises too much from the line of the political agenda of the country. Like, he's gonna go with his gut and what he believes rather than his party. Yeah. That is completely different.
That is one key difference, that Boric is a lot more, has a more compromising nature than Chavez ever had, and also he needs to be more compromising given the composition of the Congress, which I'm going to get to.
But I also think I would like to point out, sorry.
Go ahead. Maybe this is going to be a three-parter, who knows?
I do think the challenges that Boric is facing versus the challenges that Chavez was facing are incredibly different.
Yeah, I'm actually going to get to that.
Go, you go then.
No, because I was just about to say that Chavez was lucky insofar that his presidency kind of coincided with a surge in crude oil prices that would last for 10 years. Like the price of a barrel ranged in those 10 years ranged from $10 to $140. And this would allow him to fund a lot of social programs. Now, Boric isn't quite that lucky. As you were just mentioning, Chile is reeling right now from the coronavirus pandemic, and he needs to solve problems such as unemployment, pension fund system, health system, crime rates, etc., etc., etc. While the price of Chile's main export commodity, copper, is rather stagnating right now. And also, now, if you're in the give me a second. Now, you as a right-wing person or whatever, you might make the argument.
You metaphorical person
you metaphorical person
in the listening ether.
Yeah, you might be saying, well, Boric could also do. You could just basically just finance all your social programs with the big old gains from copper. Now, let me just point out the difference. One thing is that crude oil is about 96% of Venezuela's overall exports. 96%.
It's the only resource they have.
Insane.
It's the only resource they have.
Copper and its derivatives are, and I make air quotes here, merely about 50% of Chilean export, which still is a lot, but not nearly as much as 96%. Moreover, price fluctuations in crude oil are much greater than it is the case in copper. So in the case in copper, there have been price changes of up to 180% the last 10 years. In crude oil, we're talking about 800% for roughly the same period, So, sorry, you wanted to say something? Miss Francis in the back there?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, great.
I have so much I want to say.
I know that you have a lot to say, but
it's my brain's twisty, so I'm trying. Okay, you just keep going. Yeah, you go.
Okay,
you go.
I will. I know.
Okay. So no, I got it.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the thing. This is also probably you don't know this, and the only reason I know this is because my boyfriend works in this sector, and it hasn't actually become international news yet.
Okay.
But the way that this is Chilean related, the way that they're funding the universal pension fund for old people here is that they're actually charging more to private companies for copper right now, and that was Piñera's idea. And
what do you mean they're charging private companies for copper? Okay, so for
example, you have two. I know way too much about this because thank you, Mal. Okay, you have two types of I don't know what they're called in English, but two types of permits that you can apply for when it comes to mining. An exploration permit or an excavation permit, basically.
Gotcha.
So you can apply for these permits, and in the past they lasted 2 years. So meaning you can apply, and then for 2 years you are allowed to either excavate or explore, depending on what you want to do, right? Exploring would be is there actually copper or whatever we want there, or an excavation would be pulling it out. So what they decided to do was they decided to extend that to 4 years. You have 4 years to do that. However, once that time expires, you cannot apply to the same area.
Okay.
Which is a big deal because what a lot of companies do is they just apply for all over the fucking place and then they just reapply.
Right.
So that they can hold that for as long as they want. And so they're also charging triple the amount to apply for these permits. So that's a lot of technical language, but they're charging mining companies more and upping the risk to the mining companies for where they can apply on Chilean land. And they're using that money to pay for the universal pension fund.
Okay, so how is that germane to the topic? I mean, that's interesting, but
it's not. I just thought that you should know.
Oh, okay, great. No. Anyway, so good piece of information. That was interesting. No, but in a way, I think it is germane to the topic because as I just said, Chavez was using a lot of the oil revenue to fund a lot of social programs. Chile is doing the same, but Chile does not have
private companies.
Oh, okay, gotcha. They're charging private. Well, yeah, in a way, in the value chain, it's in there. And yes, one thing is they're charging private companies, but also it's not nearly. It cannot be nearly as much as Venezuela had at their fingertips.
And there's very little risk. Because here's the thing: those companies. I don't know if we ended up cutting out. Basically,
let me just say this whole thing again.
I might have shared a legally private thing, so if you didn't hear it, basically, Chile's charging some private companies. I don't know if you can say this. It's a fun stuff.
Say it
Okay.
again, just in case we didn't get in trouble the first time.
Private companies I can't mention being charged to like fund public shit. But the difference in Venezuela is that they were doing this public entity. And the thing is the private companies that Chile is charging, they're charging within a base range of something that they know that these private companies are willing to pay.
No, and I got that. My point was...
No, I'm not saying you don't get it. I'm just
okay,
trying to...
cool.
I'm just clarifying.
No, like but my point was also that yes, of course, they are making use of the copper as a concept, so to speak, whether you charge by private companies or you just use the revenues from the public company. But the thing is, like, you don't have nearly as much leeway
You're
as
not
Chavez
putting all
has.
your eggs in one
like,
basket.
Yeah, that too, But like, copper is not oil. Period. It's like you don't have the same. Don't have the same range there. Now, as we also talked about, like Boric is a lot more compromising than Chavez.
Yeah.
And also, like, he also, unlike Chavez at that point, he does not necessarily have a majority in the Congress, let alone a super majority to get his way, which
Yes,
is something
100%.
that Chavez had at the point, right?
100%. I
Also,
put this down too.
like-
So, yeah.
Yeah. Also, like, Chavez was known to be very rude with his political opponents, denigrating them, calling them names. Boric is not that kind of person. And
No.
also, he cannot afford to be that kind of person because of the majority in Congress right now. He can't do this even if he wanted to, On the contrary, he already has shown that he is willing
100%.
and able to reach across the aisle to find compromises and make things happen.
To the extreme right. I mean, Boric, like what was it, his first or second week after being elected, like, met with the head of the Carabineros, like...
Yeah.
And
Which
it
caused some
sat
frowning
down.
among the left wing.
Yeah, and it was like frowned and grumbled upon in the left. But look, he immediately was like, look, I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that I'm going to figure out what the best is and the best compromise. So, which is something to actually, I was reading in the magazine Foreign Policy, which is an internationally recognized magazine. It tends to swing pretty right. Or like, I don't know. It's moderate, but U.S. version of moderate. So, like, would be considered right-ish here. So, what the Foreign Policy magazine said was Venezuela sort of has never been seen as ever returning to democracy, while Chile had the sí no votación, like the vote that physically returned Chile to democracy and
Physically?
like there was a literal break, right?
I get what you mean.
You know what I mean? Like a democratic break, not like a revolution or anything like that. There was a democratic break, and Venezuela and internationally was recognized as dictatorship, return to democracy, which never really has been recognized as what happened to Venezuela. It was sort of like dictatorship, democracy, other dictatorship.
Yeah, it always has been like this really weird hybrid until recently, when probably going to talk about this, but when Maduro came into power, it has grown more and more authoritarian. But it has never been like, as you said, it was never this clean break between democracy, dictatorship, democracy. It was kind of like it's like
right, and then
growing
of course
a little
Cold
bit.
War politics, which is also just like complicating the whole thing. And then of course you can say like, no, it's twisty. But like, let me continue. So. Venezuela has never been something internationally recognized because, again, international recognition of a country, whether it's correct or not correct, is increasingly important and very important because of investing and different things like that. And Chile has always been recognized as a country that is democratic, returned from a dictatorship into a democracy. And as you said, because Boric does not have a supermajority of the Congress, it even supports that. He can't make super sweeping, shocking changes to Chile. He can make changes, but they have to also be supported by the other end of the aisle. So he knows, and I feel like he's displaying his knowledge of the fact that you gotta work. You can't just make decisions. You gotta work. And that is something that Chavez didn't have to do because he had his supermajority. He didn't have to do that. And then, of course, Maduro changed so much things that, like... Also, I think it's important here to recognize that Chavez and Maduro are not the same animal. Personally, I think that's very important to recognize. that even though you can definitely say that both were authoritarian in some aspects,
but Maduro doesn't really manage his shit as well as Chavez did.
I think that it's not fair to group them together as the same kind of animal, because they're not.
It's like Lenin and Stalin, if you will.
I mean,
yeah,
kind of.
Yeah, no.
Kind
I mean,
of.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah, no. Yeah, kind of. Like, and so, like, because you can say, like, a lot of positive things about what Lenin did for the Soviet Union, a lot of positive things. And then you look at Stalin and you're like, okay, I'm getting way off. I'm getting way left here. I took a left turn. But anyway, but I think that is also
came out of
important.
left field.
Nice. But I think that's important as well. Like, they both had the supermajority. Chavez is in a very organic way. Maduro's in a very forced way, you know?
Yeah.
And Boric is not trying to force anything. He recognizes what he has, and he's going to work with it, and he's shown that.
Also, yeah. I mean, to be fair, you also got to consider that, like, basically his Chavez's organic support was also, in a way, a result of the circumstances that he was in, right?
100%.
You know, the basically the oil bonanza, also that
the incredible poverty,
and also the poverty, and also that he was basically just the underdog that came out of nowhere, you know, and basically Maduro just tried to continue this legacy, and that didn't fucked up, absolutely,
because Chavez died. Like, it's not, again, it's similar to Lenin and Stalin. Like, you have this person who, because undeniably, whether you agree with Chavez's politics or not, there are a lot of really good things that he did for the country, as far as, like, objectively, of increasing of the things that were available in Venezuela, the literacy rates, the education rates, a lot of things like that. Whether you agree with the way that he did it or not,
it was not sustainable, but
is
face
not,
value,
is not what we're talking about here. But there were a lot of improvements, and so I think it's unfair to, like, look at somebody like Lenin or Chavez and their inability to know how the world and how economies changed, because I don't think they had that foresight. I mean, they started with, like, this little baby, right? I'm getting way too left, I am getting way into the literature that I've read, but, like, okay, so
let me just continue then,
you
like,
cut
because
that out,
talking about
foresight's 2020,
talking about being left.
But I'm just gonna say the biggest literacy jump in the entire world, in the entire history of the world, happened in Venezuela under Chavez.
All right. So,
I'm gonna say
mic drop. Don't drop the mic, please. That was expensive. So, point two that I have here is that Boric is not as far left as Chavez was.
No.
Not at all. You know, another reason why Chile is not going to turn to Venezuela. In spite of being called a communist by his political opponents, Boric is far from it, you know. Talking about communism, Boric ain't any of that. If anything, Boric is listen up here, he's a social democrat, period.
In
like,
fact,
his program actually resembles more European-style social democracy than Venezuela or Bolivia. And there's nothing in the program about breaking the free market system. He even said in an interview with the Associated Free Press, I was about to say the AFP, but people might misunderstand that. And I quote to say, "It is not possible to do business or for a country to grow when a society is tremendously fractured as it is in Chile." You know, so he said, and
Boric really, I feel like, and maybe I'm naive when I say this, I really feel like, politics aside, he really, really wants the best for Chile, and so, contributing to what you're saying, piggybacking off what you're saying, so the Council on Foreign Relations has declared Boric a part of the new left.
Yeah.
It's a new type of
Absolutely,
leftist that is emerging in Chile. And this has really come about, the confidence we talked about the last time that we had a podcast, also has been reflected in the picks of his cabinet. And about the professionals that he's picked and the people with experiences. It's not just his buddies, it's not just his friends, it's not just people who agree with him. It is people who are professional and trying to do and in different parts of the political spectrum.
And most of all, it's representative of the overall population.
Absolutely. And not just people from Santiago, not just people from certain sectors of business. It's people from their sectors, people from their regions. Majors? Yeah, no, not any commercial engineers, or maybe there's, I think, one. And so when people, especially, again, international view of Boric is also super important. They don't view him as the same type of, like, person with this dogma that Chavez or Maduro had. There's no really dogma involved with Boric. Yeah. He's not like an uncompromising dogmatic person at all.
No, we already said that. No, he's absolutely not.
And so I don't agree with this, but in Foreign Policy magazine, which I mentioned earlier, which compared Boric to Biden even, which I think is not true. I don't think that those
depends really on which aspect.
Really,
okay.
I don't think they're the same at all. But if an American quote unquote magazine is comparing Boric to Biden, I think that's a signal that there's trust there, right? Especially with at least the U.S.
Gotcha.
And those are huge investors in Chile, and so this is contributing to the fact that there's
Unless you really don't like Biden.
Right. I mean, if we're going to talk about how which I'm going to get into later, that the U.S. is one of the biggest contributors to the downfall of Venezuela, not just the leaders, but also the sanctions and the embargoes and things like that. If we're talking about an internationally U.S. respected magazine comparing the current president or about to be the president of Chile to the current president of the U.S., we got some good vibes going on there.
Good vibes.
Right? Yeah. And so, I mean, even it's just a really interesting animal here. And the White House even said the White House welcomes all those committed to democracy to solve the hemispheric changes when they congratulated Boric. And he's also been compared to a lot of the social democrats in Europe, as you've said.
Yep.
Like, he's not considered a communist or a socialist.
Yeah.
He's considered
this has been a very consistent theme. So, like all the Europeans are like, what are you talking about? This guy's no communist. Like,
he's young. He's 26. That's weird. But okay, fine.
Yeah.
He's a social democrat.
We have this in Austria too, so.
What do you know about Austria, you German?
I wish we didn't. Not going there. So yeah. Well, you got to be fair. You have to also mention that yes, he in the past he has showed his support to Chavez and I think also Maduro. Now I haven't scoured his Twitter feed.
He has rejected Maduro.
Yeah, and he is also and actually I did found a very poignant tweet from 2012 from Boric in which he said, between Capriles and Chavez, Capriles was the contender back then, between Capriles and Chavez, I'd have voted for Chavez, but a military man with such grandiose airs cannot be a referent for the political left of the 21st century. Like, even back then, he was very yes, he supported him, but it was not unconditionally. And a lot of times he was also more supporting the people rather than the government.
Right,
so we gotta.
At the time, again, so many changes have happened in the world since Chavez existed in Venezuela, right? Yeah. So what we view as the left has changed, right? Because the left, communism, is a giant experiment, right? Like, you can't say it hasn't been. And you can't define, just as democracy used to be, it was a giant experiment, and it worked out-ish. And it's working in different aspects, some good, some bad. That's a whole different podcast, right? But communism, with all of its different facets and challenges, is also a different thing. And as democracy has changed throughout the years, so has communism, as we were talking about. The new left, the new people like Holloway who say, like, look, I believe that people shouldn't own 5 homes, but I'm not going to take those homes. I might make a cap on how many homes somebody can buy, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna just take you and your children and eat your babies, right? And so things are changing and developing, and I think Boric is recognizing that look, at the time maybe Chavez was relevant. He's not necessarily relevant in a world that exists today.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point that you're making, and this is also something that upsets me a little bit sometimes, because I mean, I'm personally I'm not a communist, nothing, but
You're not?
No, I am not, but I do. It does bother me when people are arguing in absolutes in a way that they say is like, no, we can't do communism. And also, on the other side, I'm just like, no, capitalism is not. I was like, hold on a second. We need to take these political ideologies and adapt them to the circumstances that we're living in right now.
Right.
There are good things to communism. There are good things to capitalism. Just like you have to modify and basically go with the times here. So basically just rejecting these things and saying that, no, well, look at the Soviet Union. That hasn't worked. Was it? Well,
dude, look how long ago that was.
It wasn't. We
that wasn't. Barely had airplanes then. Calm down.
So, but as you mentioned already, Boric, he was backpedaling a lot in his support of the Venezuelan government. Also because he knows what side his bread is buttered on, because he knows he has to play nice with the current Congress. So, which kind of shows his statesmanship.
You make sacrifices for the greater good, right?
Yeah, you do too. And I would also believe, and yes, but I also think that he has showed before that he is not unconditionally supporting Venezuela's government as people make it out to be. It has never, I don't want to say it has never been this way, but it hasn't been this way for quite a while now.
Look, I think that, like I said, Sits only deal in absolutes. You can support aspects of a government without supporting an entire government. If I say, you know what, I did not support the coup that almost happened in Venezuela with Guido. Like, I don't support that. But that doesn't mean that I support Maduro.
I'm gonna shift the focus a little bit from Boric now to the Constitution, because all the process of redrafting the Constitution, because that's a big thing, and that's one of the big concerns of some segments of the population that makes them believe that Chile is going to turn into the next Venezuela, because the redrafting of the Constitution in Chile takes place under widely different circumstances than in Venezuela back in the days.
Sure.
Now, the main difference is that while the redrafting of the Venezuelan Constitution was a brainchild of Chavez. Like, Chavez sought to quickly bring about radical social change, as you mentioned before, for which he championed a redrafting of the Constitution. Now, in April 1999, his first decree, actually, as a president, was to order a referendum to make the redrafting happen, asking whether the Constituent Assembly should be convened and whether the voter agreed on Chavez's suggestion how the assembly should be elected. The referendum was overwhelmingly approved with 92.4% and 86.5% respectively, but only had a turnout of 37.8%,
Turnout.
Yeah, the turnout was... it looks a bit hinky to me. You could argue about that.
Honky.
But yeah, talking about voter suppression, whatever, but let's not get into this right now.
I don't know. I don't have any research.
Yeah, no, me neither, but it's just like looking at the turnout and then this overwhelming support. It looks weird, okay?
I mean, you can... I'm sure people might say the same thing about Chile. We had an 80% basically support of the apruebo. That's a big fucking
Yeah, but also
majority.
50% turnout.
I know. No. I know what you're saying. I'm just saying, like...
Yeah, it's...
You know what I mean?
It's a little... I think what we have here, it's a little less to the extremes, the turnout and the
Sure,
and the
but we
approval.
also have more access to public transportation than Venezuela have.
That too.
You could totally be right. I'm just saying, let's look at this in the difference between...
Yeah, the other thing is like the access to public transportation is what the people who voted in favor of the redrafting constitution in Venezuela would have needed, but they already got the 92%. You know what I'm saying? So
Numbers.
Yeah.
Numbers suck. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I'm just saying, like, I would love for there to be research, and maybe there is research. Hey, look, if you're listening to me and you're like screaming at me because you're like, ignorant lady, I respect you as a woman, and it has nothing to do with the fact that you're a woman, but you don't know what you're talking about. Feel free to email me stuff. I love reading stuff. Make sure your sources are cited. Don't just like send me something from the New York Times.
It's fun.
Hey, I got a master's degree in like academic writing. Like, give me some sources. Message us on Instagram or chiletodaypodcast@gmail.com. I would love to hear your stuff. If you have statistics about the elections for the Constitutional
Well, I got a
Convention.
doctorate from Reddit University, so yeah.
I have a master's degree from Henderson State University,
Oh, boy.
which is not a fake thing. That's real.
Henderson, like Jim Henderson?
I got it when I was 23 years old.
Is it like from Jim, the Muppets
young.
guy?
I was way too young to have a master's. They should not let somebody that young get a master's, I swear to God. What?
Oh boy, yeah, never mind. Anyway, so the new Magna Carta, then in Venezuela, he was presented to the electorate for a second referendum, much as is going to be here, in December that year, and approved with 72%, which was audited by the, also, gotta say, mostly Chavista, National Electoral Council, okay? Do with that information what you will. Now, between the first referendum and its implementation, only 8 months have passed.
Ugh.
Now, I read somewhere, and I couldn't really back this up, but I read that the Constituent Assembly only took like 60 days to draft this whole thing, which was just like, okay, that is insane.
We
you
haven't
know,
drafted
so
shit.
yeah, so which is also like, okay, this is a different animal right there.
There is so much research,
Now,
so much stuff
yeah,
going into this
yeah,
constitution.
actually, just like,
They
dude, I have a day
estimated,
job.
What, 2 years? They estimated 2 years of how long it's going to take.
Oh, research for our.
our
I thought you
no,
meant
no,
like us doing it. Yeah.
No,
Yeah, that
for
too.
the research for the Constitution in Chile, they've like estimated 2 years. They have consultants.
Right, which is a
we
good
got to
thing, you know?
100%, and the different professions that are involved, the different political parties. Now, there's definitely like a left-leaning entity there within it,
Go
but
on,
it
have
is
words
not
about that
completely
too.
left-wing.
Yeah. No, and okay. So what I was saying is like between the referendum and the application of the new constitution, that was 8 months, which is not a long time, but
Nope,
okay.
that's real short.
But then what I also read, and I don't know if I understood it right, and I have nothing to back it up, that the actual writing, I'm not talking about referendum to implementation, just the drafting of the constitution took like 60 days, which is ridiculously little time, right? So The other thing is that the Constituent Assembly also butted heads with other existing political institutions, such as the Congress. And while the Congress maintained that the Constituent Assembly needs to remain subordinate to the Congress, Chavez didn't concur and even suggested that the Constituent Assembly should have the power to dissolve the Congress if it sees fitting.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, that's not good. Now, talking about the Chilean example, just to contrast, on the other hand, the Chilean process, there was not one figurehead that pushed for its implementation because it was more of a collective effort. Sure, there were a few spokespeople that channeled the whole thing, but it was something, it was kind of like a collective demand that like surged from the masses. And also the plebiscite had
it was very grassroots.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word.
Yeah, the idea of a new constitution was very much, and I mean, the biggest march in Chilean history was basically for a constitution. It wasn't left or right. Like, you know, you if you haven't seen those pictures, listener, of those massive marches after the estallido, that was a non-partisan
Why did I just
march.
hear massive Martians?
The massive Martians.
They're here among us.
Communists are Martians. They're not from this world.
From the red planet. That's why they call it the red planet.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! We figured it out! The Illuminati, the red planet, communists, it's all fitting together.
The marches.
It was really a huge thing of like, we want change, especially in Chile if you consider what that constitution represented to Chilean people, which was not just things need to change, but also this is a constitution from Pinochet. This is not representing us.
Yeah.
Someone in some ways you could probably draw a relationship between Chavez and Pinochet in the way that the constitution was drafted.
Yeah, and it went beyond a practical issue. It became also an ideological issue in a way.
Exactly. Like, I'm not gonna say that
because I talked to a couple of people. I was like, look, just like stupid question. Like let's say it works as such. Would you still want to have it changed? I was like, hell yeah, because it was, you know, it was illegitimate. It doesn't represent me. It's like, okay, I kind of get that.
It doesn't it doesn't represent a changing Chile, because the way that the Constitution exists as it is now, there is no room for growth. There are laws that cannot change in Chile, no matter if 100% of the population supports them because of the Constitution. That is authoritarian.
Right.
That does not represent the people.
Okay.
And what the Constitution should be, hopefully, in Chile is the opposite of that. Is something that is more representative of democracy, less representative of authoritarianism.
Okay, you're getting off topic again. I'm jumping right in. Fine. Oh, that if looks could kill.
Okay, guys, this is the end of part 1 of our discussion. We're excited to bring you part 2. We have so much more to say, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Hope that you enjoyed. So when in doubt,
Gringo out.
Ciao.
Bye.
The Chile Today podcast is produced and edited by Podcast Pinguino Diego Rivera, and it is starring Leonard Kluge and Bethany Francis.
Oh, but one of these days I just want you to not butcher my name. Leonard Kluge, you mean?
Leonard Kluge. Bye!